Hello, I'm Kareem, Art Director of Media Molecule. Today I will be doing a sculpture masterclass. I'll be modeling a male bust and going through basic modeling techniques to block the general form of the sculpture and build up to more detailed techniques and more sculptural philosophies and attitudes to find your own personal style in Dream. I hope you find it inspiring for you to start sculpting and find your own style in Dreams. And now we begin sculpting our head. The first phase is to block out the general shape of all the head and bust components. Here we go. This is a sculpture pedestal that I've made earlier for the purpose of this tutorial. Also, I've made the space around us and put in it some of my favorite sculptures for inspiration and reference. I've also pre-lit it with nice lights to help us sculpt in a nice atmosphere. Before we start the sculpture, I would like to recap that it's very important to have learned the camera controls. In the Dream tutorials, you will find tutorials just focusing on the camera controls and tells you all about the different nuances of it. The most important one is the grab cam, where pressing your move button on your primary controller will grab the point in space that your imp tip is over. This is the imp tip on top of the imp here. So if I put my imp wherever I want to go, press the move button, pull myself towards that point or push myself away, you see that the camera is moving accordingly. It's very important to have practiced this in order to proceed with the sculpt tutorial. There is also other features in the camera like zooming, which makes you zoom in right close to an area in order to work on very fine detail. I would recommend that you practice using the camera controls now, and when you feel confident in them, click the arrow on the video to go to the next step. The first thing I'm going to do is open my sculpt menu by pressing the T button on my secondary controller. I will pick the modes and choose the sculpt mode. Sculpt mode defaults on shapes. The shape I'm going to start with is the sphere shape. When I start pressing my T button on my primary controller, I can smear my shape continuously like that. This is the tool that sculpt mode defaults in. Instead, I'm going to change to stamp shape tool, which allows me to stamp singular stamps of my chosen shape. This is the tool I'm going to start with in my sculpture. Now I need to stretch my sphere shape. To do that, I'll use form. I tap my two controllers together, which puts me into the form state. Once I'm happy with that, I press the T button on the secondary controller to lock the shape that I've stretched. Something like that. Now I need to turn on some guides to help me place my first edits. To do that, I will open my menu again, press the guide menu and select the stay upright guide. Pressing that fixes my shape to upright position only and doesn't go in any other orientation. By pressing the second toggle beside it, it allows it to only rotate by 90 degrees only, like this. The next guide I'd like to enable from the start of my sculpture is the mirror guide. This allows me to work in symmetry, which is very useful for modeling a head. To do that, I will go to the guides, enable it, and this activates the mirror guide, which places a copy of every edit I do. This is very useful in modeling a head. You can see the mirror plane as well is drawn in the center. I will switch that off because I prefer modeling without. Now to place my first stamp, I'd like to get my two mirrored copies exactly aligned on top of one another. To do that, I try to get that center line aligned as much as I can. When I do that, I press the T button on the primary controller to place my edit. For the second edit, for the back of the head, I will turn my shape by 90 degrees and intersect with the front of the head. I would like to also blend that shape onto the first one more softly. To do that, I will activate one of our other features called the soft blend. To soft blend, I press the square button on my secondary controller and twist my hand like that. This allows my shape to blend with the previous shape in a softer way. And when I'm happy with the blend amount, I press the T button on my primary controller to stamp my shape like that. Move on to the next step when you're ready. The back of the head is a little bit too long. To modify the shape, I go to my stretch tool, grab the back of the head, and move it inward like that. Now I need to change to subtract to suggest the jaw shape. To do that, I will pick a different shape, the cube, and press this button up here to change to subtract. This allows me to cut out shapes instead of adding them. There is also a shortcut to toggle between adding and subtracting, like that. From now on, I will be using this shortcut. I place my cube at the bottom of the head to cut the jaw shape, and I need to scale this cube up a little bit. To do that, I use the controlled scale, which is pressing the circle button on the secondary controller and twisting my hand upwards like that makes my shape bigger or smaller. Notice that the upright guides are still on, which makes my shapes still upright. I'll do this first cut here for the first shape, and then go on the back of the head to create the back of the jaw shape. Always remember to press the move button and move your camera around to keep examining your edits that they are what you need them to be, just like I'm doing here. This is roughly what I'm looking for. Then I press the T button. Now the shape of the head is starting to form. When you're happy with your shape, move on to the next step. Now, I would like to exit my sculpture. I'll open my menu again and start a new sculpture. Pick the cylinder shape. You don't have to get the shape or the size of the cylinder right from the start. I'll just stamp it around the right position. I'll pick back my stretch tool to stretch that cylinder into the right size. Stretch it from the top and from the bottom. The next thing I will do is pick another shape, the sphere shape, another time, and stretch it using the form gesture into an ellipse shape, like this. Scale it up, and remember I need to be in the stamp tool, not the smear tool. Now I can soft blend the shape into the cylinder and do another stamp on the side for the shoulders. This is roughly the shape of the upper body and the neck. I will exit the sculpture again, and now I will position and scale the two pieces of my sculpture to get the right proportions. I've switched off my upright guide, and now using the cut tool and turning the upright guide back on to get a clean cut at the bottom for my bust. I got the shape of the top part now and the bottom part of my sculpture. I keep toggling between turning upright off and on for the purposes of the cuts being straight or not. Now I've switched it off. I don't really need it anymore for the work we're doing. I'm now going to scale and move my two pieces around till I just get them relatively a good proportion to each other. I selected the two together by using my X button and selecting the two, and now I can just move them both. To realign any shape, I just select it, and while holding my T button, I press triangle to realign it. So this is a good tip to know. Scoping back into the bottom section again, without the upright guide on anymore, and now I can tilt the neck cylinder a little bit to the front. Exit the sculpture again. This stage is all about trying to get a good relationship between the two pieces so I can start my next stage of sculpture. And now I'd like to re-enter my sculpture and pick the cylinder shape, use it to cut the eye socket using a little bit of soft blend in that cut as well. The eye socket is normally around the center distance of that front egg shape of the head. I'll pick this cylinder again and scale it up to do a cut for the tapering of the side of the head with a little soft blend on it as well. Move on to the next step when you're satisfied. Now to do the basic shapes for the nose, mouth, and chin. For the nose, I'll pick a cube and stretch it again using to this shape. Place it between the two eye grooves that we've done earlier. Use a little bit of soft blend by dialing it up and placing that edit. Again, I can move my edit after the fact using the move tool, just to get it more perfect. That's the basic shape I need for the nose. To do the mouth shape, the mouth or the lips usually sit on top of what we call the mouth barrel, which is a big protruded muscle area around the lips. It usually goes until the middle of the eye socket. I will use a cylinder to do the top part like that and use a little bit of soft blend to blend it with the face. This gives me the first top half of the mouth, and then a smaller cylinder at the bottom to do the bottom section of the mouth. This is sort of a combination of the muscles and lips around this area simplified to the basic form. To do the chin, we'll use the sphere shape and place it at the bottom of the head right there and dial up a little bit of soft blend again to blend it a bit with the head shape. Like that. Move on to the next step when you're done. And now I need to do a little modification to the jaw to make it have the right proportion. So basically, if you imagine a line that comes from the middle of the mouth till the side here, this is where the jaw should end. So all this bit extra at the bottom is a little extra. This is a guide to know the relationship between the mouth and that edge or the corner of the jaw. So we just take a little bit off using a cut from the base of the cylinder with a little bit of soft blend, and it's more convincing or more elegant shape. This is where it should be from these two axes. Now to do a little indentation in the skull, which we always get in the human skull, I will use a sphere and flatten it to do that indentation. I will try to get the flattened sphere as close as possible to the kind of shape I want to scoop out of the head. But rather than doing it in a very sharp cut like that, again, I will turn on a little bit of soft blend to do a softer indentation. I just move my hands in and out till I get the relative position that I want. I notice that my head is starting to take shape now, and the back of the head needs a tiny stretch still to make it slightly smaller. So I get my stretch tool and do that. Now for the ears, I will use the sphere again. Reselecting the shape, by the way, from the menu restores it again to its default uniform shape. I'll stretch my sphere shape to try to get the flat sphere that I want to do the ear. Again, the ear size is roughly from the start of the brow till the bottom of the nose, or the base of the nose. And the positioning of it starts there and ends there. We put it on the side where the jaw finishes, and then I'll get my stretch tool again and give it a little bit more width. Going back to the move tool to keep repositioning it, and I turn a lot the camera around to try to get that positioning as successful as possible. It's very important to look at the ears from the front to see that it's the right angle, and the ears usually protrude out a little bit like that. So much easier to work with just a sphere than a complex ear sculpture. So we try to get the general decisions as correct as possible, will make the specific detail much easier to do. I do another sphere cut to do the general groove of the ear. And it's very important not to get carried away with detail at this point in the sculpture. Just 3 edits to make the ear. One big one, the cut, and a little one there for the little bit at the bottom of the ear. I'll place it down here to get reasonable shape of the ear going. And always examine my sculpture, have a look at it from all directions, and make sure that everything looks reasonably cohesive and consistent. When you're ready, move on to the next step. Now to do the eyes, I pick the sphere shape and place the sphere in the middle of the eye groove. The size of the eyeball is about half of that shape, and the distance between the 2 eyeballs is another eyeball. So I'm just trying now to place the first stamp of that eye in a relatively good position. To help me do that, I'm actually going to stamp that first eyeball in the middle, which is the distance between the 2 eyes. I will put it there as a guide for me, and then I will put the eyes in the socket. I'm pushing them back because they're not as front as the one I put as a guide. Now that I've placed them with the distance between them reasonably right, I can delete that using the delete tool, and that helped me just place them relatively well. And I'm still going to move them back and front just by eye to make it convincing. There is a lot of by eye decisions in sculpture that you have to embrace. Now that I've placed the first eyeball, I can do my simple eyelids, or the first structure of eyelids, by using a cylinder and squashing it with the form gesture. And now to do the eyelid, I will stamp 3 cylinders on each side. To get the relative shape of the eyelid around the eyeball. Now, because this is all one sculpture, I am not thinking about articulation or any of that. This is one sculpture designed to all work as one piece. If I wanted to articulate the eyelids, we would do them in a different way. So I'm doing 3 stamps for every side of the eyelid. And then moving them with my move tool to get them in better position. And examine and look around at my eye. Usually this is the point where the eyelid is widest. On the top side, it's 1/3 towards the nose, and on the bottom side, it's on the other 1/3 towards the ear. And now we have a basic shape of eyelids around the eye ready. And now we have blocked out the first stage of the head. I think it's a good time to practice this, get your head around it, and when you're ready for the next stage, go to the next step. Now we begin the second phase of our head masterclass, where we add more detail to all the face anatomy and the upper body. Now to add some more detail to the cheeks section. In this area here, I will add some cheek muscle. So the shape I need to use again is the sphere. I tend to use the sphere a lot in the early point of making a head. Squash the sphere using the form again into this sort of shape. And then make it the right size of the top part of the cheekbone and soft blend it using our soft blend and go around the edge of the face where the ear and the indentation of the skull are and place the first edit of the cheek. And then using the exact same edit, I just put another one beside it just to blend it a little bit nicer towards the nose. Now, using the sphere, I will flatten it to get as flat as I can shape with the sphere and turn round off the cheek, climbing on the nose like that. There is a muscle that goes on the side of the nose under the eye that is around here. Then I'm just moving the nose a bit, always sort of adjust and modify as you go. It's not because you put something once that you can't adjust it again. The whole process of sculpture is moving and removing your edits till you're happy, or at least this phase of it. So now the top part of the cheek muscle I've bulked up, and I can then get the cylinder shape and flatten it a little. And now, to emphasize the cheekbone, I will do a cut under that soft addition that we did to the cheek. It's nice to see the cuts in full sharpness first and then soft blend to help you make that sculptural decision. And I'm just moving my hand till I get the right shape. I place a cut. No, it's a little bit too deep. Undo. Try again. And move my hand. Yes, that's a little bit better. Use the other end of the cylinder to do the return of the cheekbone again. So I used one end of the edge of the cylinder base and the other end to do that sort of S shape. The base with soft blend on acts as a very gentle push tool that I use to just squash the cheek a little. And then I'm still moving this little muscle around to It's really just supposed to take that curve of the cheek and have a nice rounded effect from one side to the other. When you're happy with your shape, click the arrow on the video to go to the next step. Now we're going to add some detail to the jaw section. And what I need here is the sphere shape again. And I will use the form to stretch it into this very elongated ellipse. And I'll basically want to emphasize the jaw shapes just on the very edge of the face by placing one of those long ellipses on this end of the jaw and the other one on the lower end. And then I can go back to my move tool by pressing circle button, and I will move it to the exact edge of the jaw. And this other one, I want to just move it a little bit further, like that. And now I've got like my jaw edge emphasized. I'll give some detail to the nose. Go to the sphere shape and subtract. And now using the subtract, I want to sort of tighten the top part of the nose, push it a little bit to taper, get that taper shape of the nose, smaller at the top and widening towards the bottom. With soft blend, I've tapered the nose. Then go back, reselect the sphere shape to get it back to uniform sphere. And with some soft blend, I will do the two nostrils and the center nose bowl shape. I can just place them roughly where they're supposed to be, and again, I will move them around using the move tool. But just two for the side and one in the center, like that. And then I'll do another long elongated ellipsoid for bulking up the middle section of the nose, again using the soft blend tool. And you can see we've already changed our nose shape from a square or a cube form to something more organic. Now using the move tool, I will just move around my different edits to try to get them in the right place. You can see me adjusting it, and the nose shape is getting more convincing. Again, the main objective in this phase is to block the nose form. I don't have to get it perfect, but I'm trying to get it take form and prepare me for my next stage of refinements that is to come. Just adjusting the edits here using the move tool. Now I will pick the cylinder shape to do my cuts, just to make a very big cut at the bottom of the nose to make it a bit flatter at the bottom. Move it around till I'm happy. There you go. And now, using the sphere shape, I'm going to cut two holes at the bottom of the nose with some soft blend on as well to get the nostrils. And just do one cut and a smaller cut in the front to make it a little bit longer. And that's our next phase of detail on the nose. I'm using the stretch tool here to just push the nose a little bit inwards, just like that. Move on to the next step when you're done. Now to work on the mouth and lips area to add more definition. I'll pick the cylinder shape again and switch to the subtract side and see if I can flatten the top of the mouth a bit more to get a better shape. Not every time I have an idea to do a refinement, I have to commit to it. Like, for example, now I keep putting the cylinder at the top and I didn't find a shape that felt right. In fact, the shape that we really need to do now is to extend the mouth from the sides a bit more, using the back of the cylinder to extend the mouth shape to the center point of the eyes, as we said earlier. Now that cut with a bit of soft blend and it feels right. The mouth is the right sort of proportion that ends at the middle of the eyes. Again, to see if I can try to get a curve at the side of the lips, I'm using the back of the cylinder with a bit of soft blend again. But it feels at the moment too fussy and unnecessary to put that now. Actually, what we need to do now is to get the philtrum, which is the recessed groove at the top of the lips under the nose. Using the sphere, I will stretch it with form again and add some soft blend. Move around the camera and move my hands in and out till I get the right shape. It doesn't have to be the right depth at the first time, I can change that later, but this is more or less like it. And then for the sulcus, I will, which is the groove under the mouth, I will use the same sphere and with a bit of soft blend again create that groove. Now the mouth is starting to shape up more. The next thing I want to do is to create the definition at the bottom of the lips. Using the cylinder again, I will stretch the shape and use the back side of the curve, the base of the cylinder, to get the definition of the bottom of the lips. Again, using a tiny bit of soft blend. That's more like it. Once you have a cut you like, move on to the next step. Now to add some bulk to the lips, I will use the very thin oval shape again. Start with that center part of the lips, this almost like a V shape that we start with around here. It's important to look at the lips from the side and the front all the time because the decisions have to work in all axes. And using the same ellipse, I will add another edit beside the first one just to accentuate that V shape, always looking from all directions. And then I will stretch the sphere even longer for the sides of the lips and place them around here. always following the contour of the face. And now we got the top section of the lips. I will just add one more between the center part and the side parts to connect them a little bit better. And again, using the same shape, the same sort of stretched egg shape, I will add small additions at the bottom of the lips to get a bit of rounded form to them. Now, using the back of the cylinder, I will adjust the top part to get the center. See, this is what I mean by the diagonal line. To get the top part of the lip, I'm exploring which part of the cylinder will give me the cut that I need. So I first try this side and look at it from different angles. Place the edit, actually not right. Then I'll actually make a simpler choice of just using the flat side of the cylinder and push it like that. Every little turn of your hands creates a slightly different result. That is something that you have to keep trying with time till your eye and hands are more sympathetic to one another. I will now clean up the philtrum area again, because due to this cut, I needed to adjust the philtrum again using the same stretched sphere with some soft blend. And then to accentuate the borders of the philtrum, I'll use a very thin stretched sphere and place it like that with some soft blend to accentuate the philtrum. But to make the hole a little bit less deep, I will put an edit inside there to make it less deep. Move on to the next step when you're